A very good evening, dear viewers, and thank you so much for joining in. It's that time again. Thursday, 8 to 9 is such a beautiful place to be here on Church of Uganda Family TV. Now, I always say, and today will not be any exception. We're always elated. We're always very glad to know that you are watching us, you are listening in, watching us from the other side. This is Ask the CEO. And my name is Apollo Sabiiti, and my friends call me Bito. It's a huge pleasure to have you on the show once again. And probably if it is rather chilly where you are, it's around that time you get yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, because it's going to get a little bit hot in here. Now on this show, just in case you are a first timer, and I say this mostly to the new viewers on DSTV, we're so glad to have you on the show. This show brings you stories, brings you people, and even a combo or a combination of people and their stories. Not just anyone, but people who have woven their way to the top, building pillars, relentlessness, sacrifice through the walks of career, the tough walks of losses in the business arena, but bouncing back every time you fall. It is what brings us here every Thursday, so you can catch a bit. Now, today we have a singular honor of having an amazing gentleman. Took my time to read about his works and exploits, not just here in Uganda, but even beyond the borders of this nation. His name is Keneth Edmund Mugayehwenkyi. Such a huge pleasure to share in your space tonight, Mukulu Edmund.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Would you like to seize the moment and say hello to our dear viewers before we get our feet wet in here?
Good evening, Church of Uganda Family TV viewers. My name is Keneth Edmund Mugayehwenkyi, the founder and director of Reach One, Touch One Ministries, a Christian ministry reaching out to older persons in Uganda and Ethiopia. I am so blessed to be hosted on our TV. We've desired to have a Church of Uganda TV, and the Lord has done it. So I'm so blessed to be here, to be able to share my testimony of what the Lord has done in my life and the ministry of ROTOM.
Beautiful one. Now, you will remember, dear viewers, that despite the preconceptions of Africa having actually the youngest population in the world,
yes,
oftentimes I don't want to use the word, we get carried away, but we do not give focus to other areas as well. And one of the areas we're talking about is the arena, or is the older persons. It should also be remembered that as much as it seems silent for a moment, for now, but in the next decade, statistics say that Africa will have the fastest growing population of people over the age of 60.
Yes.
Now, questions begin ringing when we talk such numbers.
By 2050,
Yeah.
Africa will have the highest number of older persons. Already in Uganda, we are around 4% of the population of older persons. And the older persons are not only vulnerable, but they are also very important in holding together our societies, especially in the recent era when we went through HIV/AIDS, when we went through wars, whatever we've gone through, the heroes that have held us together are the older persons. People have remembered the children, people have remembered the youth, the women and others, but they have forgotten who has held our society together through these difficult times.
True.
It is the older persons.
And that is why we are here. He already said hello. I would like to waste no more minute,
Yes.
but to now invite you. Now, before we catch what happens at Reach One, Touch One Ministries, or what we famously now call ROTOM, ROTOM, we would like to know, who is this gentleman? He is the founder, but also the executive director at ROTOM, Reach One, Touch One Ministries, a company that has branches in over 5 countries and still counting.
I am so blessed again, as I say. Before I share my life, I just want to thank God that ROTOM is the one organization I know that was born in Uganda and has since grown to become multinational, to have a branch in the USA, in Canada, in the UK, in Ethiopia, and in Germany. The tradition is that organizations and funds come from outside and established in Uganda. By the grace of God, ROTOM was born here and has branched out, even in countries where I would have been from. But that put aside, I just want to thank God for my life. I'm just almost becoming an older person myself. Over 50. I was born in Ruchiga, then Kabale. I'm in a family of 8 children. I was the 5th. And I studied in Kigezi High School. I was lucky to go to Makerere University in the times when everybody was on government scholarship. And I worked for the Church of Uganda my first years of the career and got an opportunity to go and study in Canada and also work in the USA. And while I was in the USA, the land of opportunities, as most people call it, I was called upon by my wife to support children in Uganda. And these children were living with a grandmother. So their biggest need at that time was a house. We built for them a house, and I personally came to build that house. And the process of building a house for Elizabeth and her grandchildren opened my eyes to older persons. The older woman, Elizabeth in Seta, then asked me, Kenneth, why are you helping me? There are richer people here. I told her I was a Christian, said there are more Christian people here, even reverends and fathers are not helping me. I was not able to answer her, but that question really prompted me to wonder why would somebody not appreciate, but instead ask. So when I searched more about older persons, I discovered that while we were all paying attention to children that had been left behind, that was 2002, children who have been left behind by HIV and AIDS, actually half of them were being raised by older persons, just like Elizabeth, who themselves had no means of survival. So I prayed about it, and I shared with my wife that I felt touched to return to Uganda, leave the land of opportunities, and help older people. And graciously, God bless her, she said, if that's what God is telling you to do, so be it. So I returned in Uganda the year following and started helping Elizabeth. It's now it's 19 years now, next month. And what was Elizabeth, one old woman that we supported with a house and her grandchildren, has now become over 1,500 older people, supported with the gospel of Christ. That is in Uganda, and over almost 100 in Ethiopia, supported with the regular gospel of Jesus Christ, supported with healthcare, supported with food, supported with raising their grandchildren. Now, over 600 grandchildren have been supported since we started. And really, what touched me was during the COVID time. Older persons were feared and expected to be the ones who would succumb. Through ROTOM, all the older persons we support received food supplies continuously throughout. They didn't lack any food. They received health care. We did an outreach program where we used border borders and telephones and nurses, and we were able to provide 100% health care to those older persons. We provided 99% COVID vaccination for them, and we went through COVID without losing any older person to COVID.
Wow.
Almost the 1,000. We all survived. And then I knew God had a purpose for ROTOM, because this was the most feared time for the section of people that we supported.
Dear guest, if I say right now I am standing, or rather seated, in the presence of greatness, you surely would not vertically, because you agree with what I say. It's such a huge pleasure to have you, Mr. Keneth. I would like to now request that if you could roll the tape
Yes.
to where your story actually begins.
Yes.
Born in a family, you said, of 8?
Yes, we were 8.
The fifth kid?
Actually, by the time I was born,
Yeah.
we were living in a grass thatched house with 3 rooms. One room was my parents' bedroom,
Yeah.
another room was our bedroom, and the other was a multi-purpose room. And our grandfather was born again by that time. My parents were churchgoers, very hardworking family they were. They really did grow cabbages and others like other Bachiga did. And they loved education. And they took all of us to school.
Yeah.
And through the journey of school, there are people who impacted me that I think have really blessed my life. One of them was my father. My father spent a lot of time with me. We had cows, so whenever we tended cows, he was with me. Whenever we went to the banana plantation, he was with me.
Went with you.
He disciplined us. He was very disciplinarian, but he also loved us. He hardly gave us any extra money except school fees. He gave the girls some, but he made sure we all went to school.
Yeah.
And so as I grew up, an uncle of mine who was a Christian man, Uncle Justus Kana, loved me and took me into his wings.
Yeah.
And in his house in 1986, during family prayer, I was convicted to give my life to Christ. And I did. And soon after that, my mother did. And soon after that, my father did.
Wow.
And I think that was the beginning of transformation in my life. So I was able to go through university. So when somebody asks me, what is it that has happened to your life that has changed you? It is having those role models in my life. It is giving my life to Jesus Christ. And it is education. Those 3 things seem to be the center of what has happened to me.
At the Young and Flourishing Foundation, the foundation that powers this show,
Yes.
one of the pillars is actually mentorship.
Yes.
And it touches my heart so deeply when you talk about how you are so fond of your father,
Yes,
how he went with you almost everywhere, made sure that you had these skills with you because you would definitely need them later in life.
He did. And I remember also when we started ROTOM, because I had left the USA, where he thought I would earn more money and support the family. I remember him asking me, but Kenneth, have you thought about your decision? If you want to come back and do what I hear other people doing, using the poor to make money, please don't embarrass me. But if you're sure that God has called you to do this, go ahead.
He gave you the benefit of a doubt, like they like to say.
As the ministry of ROTOM was starting, in the hard times, I remembered him saying, do not embarrass me. And because I really loved him and respected his word, I made every effort not to embarrass him. And I think now he's a happy man, 87 years old.
Wow.
And he's blessed of what ROTOM has done.
Dear viewer, in case you're just wondering what we are talking about, this is ROTOM, an acronym that spells out Reach One, Touch One Ministries. Now, this ministry has been here with us for now 2 decades.
19 years,
19
coming
years.
to 20 years next year, which will be a very big celebration.
Oh, I want to be among the number.
It will be a big celebration.
Yeah.
Some of you who know me and remember when ROTOM became 10 years, in 2013, we did a walk. I walked 400 kilometers from Kavali to Mukono. I worked with some older people to celebrate the 10 years achievement, but also to highlight the cause of older persons. We will have a big celebration for what God has done next year in October. But the journey of ROTOM has been a wonderful journey, I can say.
Yeah.
Yes.
We would like to catch a little bit the middle part of the story. Growing up here, your school life, how is it like? You also mentioned that you went to the famous Chigezi High School,
Yes,
which by the way makes 100 years. And while preparing to come in here, I was told by some of your some of your hobbies or your orgies. I mean, you resided in Agri House.
Yes, I did live in Agri House, the best house that there was then.
All right.
So after Nyiknama Primary School, I went to Geza High School. That was a very hard time in our country. That was to go to school. That was both a 2 time. There wasn't enough food. We often did not have enough food, and our deputy headmaster Henry Triagenda had to really do his best to encourage us. We had times when we had outbreak of dysentery in the school because the sanitation facilities were not good. But the school was focused on faith. The teachers were hardworking teachers.
Oh, they were.
They loved us. They taught us. So I was able to complete Senior 4 and do very well. Surprised myself because I was normally not a very keen scholar. But then I didn't want to go back to Geza High School. I thought Geza High School was a place to suffer. There wasn't enough food often. Though there was so much support from the teachers, but there wasn't enough food. So I came to Kampala and I went to Caltech Academy, which was very close to the university.
Just beneath the hill,
just beneath the university.
Makerere.
And the former Geza High School, OBs who were at Makerere, including Virungi Byayesu, were there to teach us. And we did very well in A-level, and I joined Makerere. I was really lucky at university level. I can easily say here, it has been by the grace of God. I've always been an average student. I've been an average person. By the grace of God, I was able to always succeed and make my grades. But I've always admired people who have succeeded in life. I've told you about my father and my uncle. But also I have had other mentors in my life that I looked up to. Archbishop Nkoyoyo, Mpalanyi, who wedded me also. Loved me and was always my mentor, and he always challenged me to do more. I remember him telling me that Kenneth, at the time he lost his son actually, and I went to commensurate with him. He said, he asked me to buy more land for ROTOM, and I told him it was very hard. He said, when things are hard is when men rise up and work for God. And all prophecies he prophesied on my life all came true. And the principle was always, when things are hard, you rise up. And to date, when things are hard,
indeed,
we rise up. And that's how the story of ROTOM have come to be. So, but I worked for the Church of Uganda and Mirembe Diocese. I had a child sponsorship program for a few years. Again, Bishop Kauma was a good mentor. Then there's a Wolganda, we call him. Zach Kalega was my boss. Very disciplinarian again. He kept time to the dot. He required you to do your assignments to the dot. He was German and Dutch trained leader that established UPMB and our program. And under him, I learned how to work hard, how to be honest, how to be disciplined. I used to carry the brethren books and loudspeakers during the conventions. And I grew up from there. I learned to work hard. And then Church of Uganda offered me a scholarship. That's why I'm very happy to be on this television, to go to study in Canada. And while I was in Canada, I got a job in the United States. And this job, I was working with at-risk youth. The one thing I learned being out there was that our society beats us so much. If you ever got 8 at Makerere, then it was almost abnormal. But when I went into Canada, I was getting hundreds. I went to America, the places we worked with, I promoted 3 times in 2 years. I was like, what is this? And then I realized there's so much potential in us and in African leaders that we do not recognize. We are accustomed to beating ourselves down. So even before God called me to come, He purposed my journey. He put me under men who were good examples. He exposed me to environments that were positive and gave me the experience. So I would like to say that God has created me and each one of you and us for a purpose. And everything that happens to your life is God ordained. It's God ordained. There's a part of my story that I don't share a lot, but I probably can share now. Is that during the Obote II government, I was a very young man in senior 2 or 3. I was taken in what they would used to call Pandagari. I was walking above the park, I think William Street it is, a very young boy, and people, just plainclothes officers, just took me to CPS and threatened to lock me in because they suspected I was a rebel.
Wow.
And
Which
they
year
asked
is that?
me, I think this was 1983, around
Maybe
there.
for the benefit of someone who is just catching us, we have an amazing guest. His name is Mr. Keneth Edmund Mugayehwenkyi, a man who about 19 or so years ago conjured up the faith required, and against all the odds at the time, stuff that wasn't going for you, you made up your mind, and a baby at the time called ROTOM was born. Reach One, Touch One Ministries, 19 years and counting, and next year they'll be making 20 years of huge impact. And their quest is that so older people can live dignified lives, yes, and fulfilled lives.
Yes.
An aspect of life that most of us go about our lives on a daily basis, 8 to 5, the hustling of the city, and we forget that
It's
part.
coming.
It's coming. It's coming, and it's coming fast.
And it comes very fast.
Oh, yes, it does.
It does.
When you are in the evenings of your life, or you've probably watched your parent. I had the privilege of nursing my grandfather in the dire evenings of his life.
And that was a blessing that God gave you.
I believe so.
Yes. Old age is meant for us to enjoy, and God has designed it that way. Created family, created children, so that we may support those who are older in our lives, so they may enjoy. But there have been changes in our society.
Yeah.
There's been
Remarkable.
rural-urban migration,
Yeah,
that has left many older persons at home. There has been, as we know, in the 90s and 2000s, HIV and AIDS that decimated the very strong years that would have worked for us,
yeah,
leaving many orphans in the care of older persons.
yeah.
And with the structural adjustment and modern economy, many older persons are not able to fit in the cash economy.
Yeah.
So that has made aging challenging, but it's meant to be celebrated. And our role is to really support the older persons to live dignified lives, to go home to our Father when they're happy and joyful. That's what God has ordained it to be.
Yeah.
So, but before we went to the break, I just briefly talked about
Pandagari.
So I was taken in, and there was no telephone those days. There was no way to...
Is that the same CPS?
This very CPS, it was a very small room down below the reception. But luckily, by the grace of God, one officer kept asking me,
Yeah.
just before the day ended, whether I was honestly saying the truth.
Yeah.
And this really forms the basis of my life. I told him in the face that I was honestly a young student here for holiday, yearning to go back to Gezai school. And he believed me and walked me to my uncle and said, never come back to Kampala. And I never did until the government changed because I feared being arrested. But that really shook me.
Yeah.
It shook me, and I knew that anything could happen.
1983.
1983, and I started wanting to live for a purpose. I could have disappeared.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever known where I would have been.
Yeah.
So every other year that was added on to me was by the
It's
grace.
a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift of
And I thank God that I have, in my own opinion, lived it very well, honoring my Father,
Amen.
honoring my God, and making a contribution to older persons. So I go to Canada, I study, I apply for a job ordinarily, and I'm given a job in the USA. And at the time of going to take my job, they discover I'm not actually Canadian or American, so they struggle to get me a work permit. But they do it after a year or so. And when I had worked there for a year or so, that's when my wife asked me to support Elizabeth. And when I came back to Uganda to visit my family and build for her a house, is when I saw the needs of older people clearly. Nobody seemed to have been seeing. Even today, many people don't see it. But there was loneliness was very key. Elizabeth was a lonely woman with her grandchildren. She had no food to feed them except what we gave her. She had no house except what we had built for them. The children were not going to school except us paying their school fees, me and my wife. So then the Archbishop Nkoyoyo had been passionate about older people, and actually written a paper that was shared in Copenhagen, I think it was, about older people. So I went to him and asked him, and there was no other literature. Even the population census then didn't capture anybody above 50. It was like 50 plus.
Yeah.
So
they would just categorize.
Yeah, but since then we have advocated, and now our statistics capture different ages.
Yeah.
So that touched me, but when I went back to America, that really kept lingering in my mind, and I quit my job. I remember my supervisor, Dr. Rayma, saying, "Kenneth, at that time, Con was still there. Con was cutting lips of people in northern Uganda, 2002. And he came to me, the magazine, Time magazine, with a story of Uganda, northern Uganda in war. He said, "What's wrong with you? Why would you leave America to go to Uganda?" And I told him, "Keep my job. I've been called by God to go to my country and be a missionary back home. If things don't work out, I'll return and give me my job." It's coming to 20 years, I've never gone back. I've never gone back.
You probably only go back to inspire and cause some change.
Yeah, to check also no office there.
Yeah.
So when I returned to Uganda, I started visiting Elizabeth. And Elizabeth told me of her friends. You know, people of the same status know each other.
A way of looking out for, absolutely.
Elizabeth had a friend called Naomi who was living on the streets of Seta. But they had a relationship. She would collect garbage from the market in Seta, banana peels, and bring it for Elizabeth's pigs. And Elizabeth would give her some food and sometimes a place to stay when she needed to. But she had been accustomed to that place, and Elizabeth told me about her. By the time I found Naomi, it was very difficult. Naomi had been very sick, and I remember that she had pus in her ears, pus everywhere. And when I talked to Naomi, she told me the reason she was
in that state,
she was running away from her nephews who wanted to kill her and take the house. So they had previously tried to poison her, and she had survived. And this is happening in our society. This was in Mukono. And they had burnt her house down. So she chose life on the street. So we were very lucky to take her, find some of her relatives, get her a piece of land, and build for her a house. We later discovered on the street she had contracted AIDS. She died 10 years after we started supporting her, but she died in dignity. She died in a home. The first thing we had built for her before we built a house was a latrine, and we had put a makeshift house, and I remember her wanting to sleep in the latrine because it was nicely done before she could sleep in the house before it was finished. But that's what we did. So we started visiting older people and praying with them. And they were telling me the same stories. Stories of neglect, stories of loneliness, stories of poor health. And I asked the 8 that I visited first if we could come together for fellowship. So we started what we call weekly fellowship. And to date, since then, we have a bi-weekly gathering where seniors come together and fellowship. They read the Bible, they eat the good food, they dance together, they talk about their problems. We have now 58 of those happening in this country every 2 weeks.
58 fellowships.
Yes.
He calls them seniors. The young blood, the younger generation calls them grannies.
Yes.
But they are there on a daily basis, looking out for someone who could cause the slightest of change in their lives.
Yeah.
We're speaking a gentleman who, inspired by the story of a one Elizabeth, over 19 years ago, we're talking 2003, just after the turn of the century, and then to her friend Naomi, who unfortunately passed on 10 years after she had become part of ROTOM.
Yes.
But yet, 19 years later, we have over 58 of these fellowships going on across the country, and we have over 1,000 plus lives surviving under the support of this beautiful, amazing ministry.
So then we learned there was loneliness among older people. This fellowship solved the issue of loneliness. Also gave us an opportunity to share the gospel of Christ, as well as having a regular meal. So later, one of the seniors, we call her Mai because she originally came from Eastern Uganda. Mai, meaning Mama, but she's Clementine.
Mai. Okay.
She missed the fellowship, and when she missed the fellowship, I went to check on her at home. She had had malaria for 2 days, and she could not get treatment. And malaria treatment is basically free in government facilities in Uganda.
Absolutely.
But she told us, if that was true, is that when she went, they didn't have a booklet to give her, to write her prescription. And also then she said they had asked for 300 shillings for a syringe. I will not mention the health center, but that's what happened. So I walked at the health center, paid not more than 1,700 in total, and she got treatment and she became well. Then we learned there was also need for healthcare.
Yeah.
And we started paying for complete free healthcare for all the persons. Until a time when we realized that with so many patients and pressure on our health facilities, old people are forgotten. They come and wait in the line like any other. We used
and
to
yet they run low on glucose and calories.
So we used to come to Mulago and wait. And in one instance again, an older person was sent out of hospital because he was incontinent, and the ward they had was very small and he could go to toilet without notice. So they said, no, we can't keep him, take him and take care of him. I was so angry, and my only perception was that this was called Samuel Tomsange, has been sent out because he's old. Had he been young, he would not be incontinent. Therefore, he would have stayed in the hospital.
Absolutely.
So I chose to raise support very seriously and built the only healthcare facilities in this country that care for older persons. Centers of excellence in geriatric care in Africa. One is based in Mukono. It's called ROTOM Health Center. Another one is based in Ruchiga now. And these places have specialized doctors, nurses. Whoever is there just loves older people. And there we care for older people. I think every year we care for over 10,000 older people, providing healthcare. Yes. So that's how we got into healthcare. And later, as it would be, then everybody tells you, thank you for giving me food, thank you for visiting me, but what do I do with my grandchildren? On average, in the areas where we support, every older person has 3 grandchildren in their care.
On average?
Yes. Now remember, these older people have no pension. There's no universal pension. Only less than 7% of Ugandans can access pension.
Absolutely.
Or NSSF.
That speaks so well of the pressure that there is.
You know, I was asked regularly by donors. Uganda has been out of war for many years. HIV/AIDS has been gone for so many years. Why do we still need help? And I struggled for a bit of time until I realized that children below 18 years who are dependents are almost 60% of our population.
Yes.
56%.
One of the youngest.
Older people are 4%. Yeah. So you already have 60% of the population dependent.
Yeah.
Then you have among the population of 18 to 60, very few are gainfully employed.
Yeah.
Basically, 80% of the people in Uganda are carried by
the other 20%.
The 20%. So when I learned that, then I realized there was a big problem.
Yeah.
So we started supporting the older people, raise grandchildren in their care. So you discover that the pillars of ROTOM are spiritual care for older people, health care for older people, and food security. Like I said, they are not able to raise food themselves. And the older people we support are not every older person.
Yeah.
These are older people who have lost their families, who are alone, who have no assets, who have no income. So they are not able to raise any food. So we make sure they have food.
Yeah.
We actually, the target is that every older person we support would eat 2 meals a day. And 96% of the older people we support are able to eat 2 meals a day. So we did that also, and then we started helping them raise their grandchildren. And as I speak to you now, I already said it. 400 grandchildren are supported now, but since we started this, we have supported over 600.
Wow.
And some at university level. And this is exciting to talk about because we have a ROTOM Champions program that supports granddaughters of older people with not only tuition but with hostel fees, with a stipend. So none of our children that we support will be looking for money from sugar daddy. Because they have enough money for pocket money. They've
been
hostel, and they have each a mentor. We have identified young women that are successful to mentor them. We have each of them been counseled to overcome losses of their own parents. And when they graduate, before they graduate, we have a graduation or employment preparation program where we teach them how to make resumes, how to apply, how to present themselves, how to budget for their finances. And all of them, almost 100 of them, are gainfully employed. And now they are helping their grandmothers, which is now our success.
Wow, that's like we're saying off the record.
That is sustainability for us.
We
are now going full circle. Traditionally, the African extended family takes care of their weak, who are the older children, but because of AIDS, because of wars, because of poverty, some older people are not having that family. Raising their grandchildren through education, giving them a job and a skill, now enables them to be the family that now provides for their grandparents. And I am confident that even if ROTOM was not there now, those very daughters who are graduated and work can look after their grandparents and themselves and their siblings. With
no shadow of a doubt.
So yes, that's what God has done in the ministry of ROTOM. Like I said before, I did walk 400 kilometers when ROTOM became 10 years. And what prompted me was that God had answered all my prayers. I had asked God that He would provide enough donors to provide all the needs of the older people we supported. At that time, I think there were about 600 or 700. And I had asked God to give us money to build health centers for older people and have our own offices. He had done that. And as thanksgiving, I wanted to sacrifice. But there's nothing I could give God. He has everything. So I thought I would sacrifice of myself, do something that hurts me. So I chose to walk, and I was inspired by the Christians who walk to Namgongo. I chose to walk 400 kilometers.
Every single year.
Yes. And when I did that, so many people joined me, and we did a long walk.
Hold it up, Uncle Ken, if I may borrow that. Thank you so much, dear viewers, for joining in. This is Ask the CEO. Beautiful show, a place to be every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. We bring you beautiful, touching, impactful stories, just like Keneth is over here.
You know, the most blessed time is to be in the presence of older people. As I said, at ROTOM we do regular fellowships, and I can tell you, if you attend one of those fellowships,
you never leave the same.
They will call you grandson, they will call you son, but they will express love in immense ways. So I don't even know where to start. My best day is to be visiting older people, but because of the role I have now, I don't have as much opportunity as I used to do before. But over the years, we have contributed to the work of older persons in Uganda. You know, as early as we started, we are part of the team that pushed for the policy on older persons, which has since become law. Before the ministry was even there, we've pushed for that. It was established, and we are now very lucky. But one of the other things we did was the first ever grandmothers gathering in Uganda. In 2015, I mobilized several other organizations, and we did 5 days at that hotel, the Blue Hotel in Entebbe, by the beach. I think it's Imperial. Imperial Beach Hotel, I think it is. And we brought 500 grandmothers from all over the country. And for 5 days, the grandmothers...
They were eating fish.
...shared their stories. So we had been supporting older people by then, already 12 years. And we had gotten out of what we call the pain, because we had already been giving them health care and food. And then time had come for them to say, we want to participate. Things are happening, we are left out. Policies are being made, we are left out. So we brought the 500 grandmothers to Entebbe from all over the country, and we invited the leaders of the country.
You made the statement.
The Prime Minister, the Minister, several ministers and heads of departments in health and aging, and the grandmothers demanded that they would like to be heard. And from then, we formed what we call the Grandmothers Gathering, and now the Grandmothers Consortium. This is an organization that we have birthed, and its sole purpose is to advocate at district and national level for the rights of older persons to be heard. And it's having an impact. Actually, coming on Saturday, on International Day for Older Persons, the Grandmothers Consortium and the Ministry of Gender and Heritage International are sponsoring a media award. So I hope that Family TV will participate next time and win the award for the work you do to promote the dignity of older persons.
Thank you so much. I know I will be coming to the 1st of October, an internationally recognized day. But I would like to seize the moment. Before we went for the break, you were talking about the walk.
So the walk.
This man, allow me interject here. An article written in 2013, October, labeled this man the walking man after he did the whole trek 400 kilometers from the Ugandan capital all the way from Kabale.
So we actually walked from Muhanga, where we officially opened the health center then, and walked to Mukono and officially opened another health center. The New Vision graciously gave us a journalist, Nigel Nasser, who was embedded. He recorded every step we made every day and chronicled it in the New Vision, and he called it the walking man. And we started with 400 walkers. After 40 kilometers, we were only 15. By the time we came to the equator, we got another few hundreds.
In Masaka.
Yes, and a good bunch of them came up to here. And I never slept in a car. I hardly slept in a hotel. I slept in a tent. But that was just to show my appreciation what God had done in our lives. And at the equator, we made a statement to be presented to the UN, demanding for the rights of older persons to be heard. And our work has not been in vain. Only last week on Thursday, we were honored by the United Nations Decade of Health Aging
at the UN General Assembly.
The UN General Assembly last Thursday, I think it was the 24th. There was a side event hosted by World Health Organization and the UN Department for Economic and Social Development and ILO. And I was surprisingly and humbly recognized among the 50 leaders in the world, and what has made the world a better place to live.
Very humbling.
And therefore Uganda and ROTOM and the aging work in Uganda now have a platform on which we can push for a charter that would establish a department for older persons at the UN full time. So that has been the journey. But we can easily say that it's possible to give older persons dignified lives. What the older persons need is to associate with others, which we can create through support groups, through clubs. And the government can do this, and churches can do this, and individuals can do this. What they need is basic minimum livelihood through some income. We applaud the 25,000 older people receive, those who are above 70 and above, but we want to push that lower so that more older people can get a pension. Older people can get access to free health care, and older people can be supported to raise orphans. When that is done, which doesn't take very much, less than $50 a month is enough to provide that for older people. And I think our budget can afford it. That would give dignity to older people. Yes.
For them to live with happy faces. Thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth. I said earlier that it was such a huge pleasure having you on the show, and to know that you scooped an award, one of the 50 who are causing change in the livelihoods or in the lives of older persons, recognized by the United Nations at a side event hosted by the World Health Organization. Thank you so much for the job that you do. Now, as we try to get into the closing stages of what has been an impactful and beautiful show,
Yes.
how does a typical Monday morning look like at ROTOM? Do you have walk-ins? Do you have inquiries?
So when you are supporting the vulnerable, there are always inquiries. But before I go to a typical day at ROTOM, I would like to say that we have developed a criteria for somebody to qualify, which identifies areas, which identifies individuals. And this criteria focuses basically on poverty, on poverty indicators. It also focuses on poor health. It also focuses on isolation. So the older persons we support must meet a 10-point criteria, which we share with the local leaders in the areas where we serve. We currently serve in Mukono, in Ruchiga, in Budaka, and also in Ethiopia. We'd love to be throughout the whole country, and we believe we will. So in my current role, I have over 60 staff now in Uganda. I have 7 staff in Ethiopia. I have 3 staff in USA, 3 in Canada, and in Germany, and also in the UK, whose daily time is to selflessly work for the
older
dignity
persons.
of older persons. As a Christian organization, when we come into ROTOM, we do devotions. I don't work very hard. I have a wonderful team. So what I basically do is to inspire them. And I wanted to share the things that I think I've learned over this journey of my life, but also of ROTOM. By the grace of God, we have worked hard to be honest. The resources entrusted to us, either of people, of time, and of money, be managed very well. We are very ruthless at ROTOM. We don't allow people to waste time. We don't allow people to mess with the money given to us. We don't allow people to disrespect older people, and that has earned us trust.
I was coming to that because oftentimes, and just like your father honorably requested, that if you were coming here to be honest, he would be proud of you. I'm very sure tonight that he watches by and he's very proud.
Yes, so we have inculcated that. We have been honest, we've been hardworking, and we have been trusted. And that is the single lesson I would say has contributed to the growth of ROTOM from being a zero-man organization to becoming a multinational with over $1 million of budget every year, and trusted. I was very humbled when the Assistant Commissioner and the Minister of Gender told me a donor came to them to ask about several organizations to be funded, including ROTOM, and ROTOM scored highest. We were actually denied money because we are doing very well. They say this one doesn't, they don't need help. And I told them, if that is the reason, that's okay. It's better to be recognized for being good
but that
than
speaks,
for being bad.
Oh yes, it does. That speaks so well about, I think that falls within the bounds of accountability.
Yes, and I keep telling my fellow Christians, God owns everything and has the best.
Yeah, he does.
Why should we be found wanting? We should be testimony for Christ. Why should we be found wanting in managing money, in managing time, in managing people? Like I said, I don't do much. The only thing I pray daily is that I will do God's will, and when He's done with me, I will not be there. And for that reason, my teams, donors, and staff follow us. They follow trust, they follow honesty. And I think that's what we need as a country, to be able to serve. It's not rocket science. It seems to be very simple, but when God gives you that gift, everything else changes.
It does.
So my daily day is to inspire my teams to trust me and ask my managers to be trusted by their teams, and ask our staff to be trusted by the volunteers, and the volunteers to be trusted by the older people. And when that happens, God unleashes. I can confidently say on this show that we've never lacked funds to run our programs.
Amen.
God provides the funds. And we now say God has honored our faithfulness. And because of that, He has opened the floodgates of heaven.
Amen.
Provide the resources needed. So,
and we pray that you will never lack.
We will never lack.
Amen.
We trust our living God.
Amen.
But I know the time is quickly coming to the end. I just want to remind our viewers that Saturday, October 1st.
1st October, International Day for Older Persons.
This is a day designated by the United Nations to celebrate aging and also to raise awareness about the rights and needs and responsibilities of older persons. And this year's International Day for Older Persons will be celebrated in Uganda. We will all be in Nebi on Saturday. The President is the chief guest. Our theme for this year is resilience of older persons in the changing world. Older persons are resilient. They held together our families during AIDS. They have held together our families during poverty. During COVID, everybody ran to their villages to live with the older persons. They had more mouths to feed than before. Older persons play a big role. We need to celebrate them. But we also need to challenge ageism. We need to challenge perceptions that older persons are witches. We need to stop abuse of older persons by trying to take away their property, disrespecting them, trying to grab. There's a lot of land grabbing from older persons. So this year, as we celebrate in Nebi, the President has honored us. He will be there to celebrate with us. I just want to remind everyone that older persons deserve dignity.
They do.
And it's not very hard.
They do.
We are all getting there very soon. So doing it for older persons down is an investment. So that what you've given will be given back in good measure.
Pressed down.
Pressed down and running over. So I encourage us to do that. And I also encourage us as Ugandans, as a people, to be honest, to work hard and trust God. Not trust donors, not trust other parts of the world. Trust God and be faithful. He is faithful and He'll honor us. He owns everything.
He does.
And He makes provision.
Such a trustworthy saying. The word says, actually, that all silver and gold belong to Him. And David, out of the fullness of his heart, said, I was young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor go without bread. We pray that the stores at ROTOM will never run dry. We hope that that inspiration that you shed off will cause a huge impact. And as we look forward to the 1st of October, an internationally celebrated day for older persons, we hope that all will be going well in Nebi, and of course that the resilience of older person in this ever-changing world, that we will find the relevance of these old people, the wise people, that will seek their counsel even when they're in the evenings of their lives. But also remember that the quest of ROTOM is that so that older persons live dignified and fulfilled lives. We're so glad that we've been able to have you on the show. We do this every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Apollo Sabiiti, once again your host. And this show is powered by Young and Flourishing. It's always very hard to squeeze all this into just 1 hour of airtime. So be very sure you will see this gentleman again here on this show.
Specifics.
Oh yes.
Of what we do and all that. But I just want to encourage everyone. ReachOneTouchOneMinistries.org, and you will. We want to encourage Ugandans. You see, one of the challenges of Uganda is we do not give. And we know it is blessed to give than to receive. We have branded ourselves poor and dependent. And if it is either government etuyambe or wazungu batuyambe, but I think we are blessed. And if we stop holding our hands as a fist and just give to others, the floodgates of hell will be open. So I encourage people to give to ROTOM, to give to every organization that means well, and to give to the work of God. so that we may in turn be blessed. Our friends in the north, in North America and in Europe are blessed because they give. So that's the word I leave with everyone watching us.
Thank you so much.
It's more blessed to give than to receive.
Thank you so much. And to that, I will add nothing, and hope to catch you next week, same time and same station. Good night.